about Adam Jensen, shall we?
Yeah.
Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. Originally supposed to come out February of this year.
I believe so.
Now it's coming out August 23rd, 5 years to the day. Since the Deus Ex Human Revolution. I can't believe that's been 5 years.
Yeah.
That's troubling.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I didn't even realize it had been that long.
Is that crazy?
That's quite a long time.
2011. Because it seemed like they were dead on to make a sequel to this game. It seemed to do well.
Yeah,
it seemed to surprise people.
And people were talking about it well past the release date too. Like it was still a relevant game for a while.
A lot of people seem to enjoy it. The only criticism of that one, if I remember correctly, was the sort of boss fights forced you not to be stealthy and forced you to play a certain way.
That was
the
the
whole
biggest
game was about player agency, and then sort of threw it out the window.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So you've played a bunch of it. How much have you played, Scott?
Yeah, so I got to play it back in September, and then I got to play it again last week and saw different sections both times. Okay. So back in September, I saw a lot of like just dedicated story missions that were focused on combat or stealth. It was just like straight up gameplay. So what I played more recently was like the open world segments and a lot of the social conversation systems. So I've now seen actually a really well-rounded portrait of the game, which was really nice. The more recent stuff was like I got to check out Prague, which is sort of the home city. It's sort of like Detroit was in Human Revolution. Right. You'll jump off from there and go to other parts of the world to do missions, but that sort of seems to be the hub area, the main hub area. So I got to kind of like look around for side quests and explore and find hidden stuff like that. So yeah, new areas, side quests, conversation system, even saw some new augment stuff like that.
Cool. I want to keep this open for the people in the chat as well. At Danny O'Dwyer in the GameSpot chat or the Twitch chat, if you have any questions, I'll be sure to pass them on. First of all, I want to ask you about Prague, because I get a real like Half-Life 2 vibe off of the gameplay when I see this, because that was also like set in some sort of like generic, we don't know, Belarusian maybe or Eastern European city, right?
Yeah.
What was it like exploring Prague? How big was the open world? Like, what were you kind of do? Was the moment-to-moment action just you ambling around and talking to people, or were you like using your stealth and stuff like that? Like, how did that actually feel?
Yeah, so during those sections, you're free to explore at your own pace. Like there are no like time restrictions really. There are no directives. You can kind of just like take your time between missions and explore and do whatever you want. To be clear, it's not like a fully open world game. It's not one big giant map. It's actually a bunch of discrete open areas that are connected by a subway system. So you can kind of like explore this area, then run down into a subway station and like pick a new destination. Right. There's a little cutscene and it whisks you away and you're at the next
darkness
area. Kind of, yeah. It's so it's a little more like that. Yeah, there's some definite Half-Life vibes to the way the city's designed. It actually, for me, suffers from kind of the same problem as Detroit or Shanghai in the previous game, where the city areas don't really feel like cities to me.
Yeah.
They're like weirdly tubular. Like if you're running around in like Grand Theft Auto or something, you kind of like see an area, you can run over to it, and you can kind of go wherever you want. It feels like a natural city.
Yeah.
Here, your options for where you can go are like very limited, so it ends up feeling like a game level. But that's just me kind of wanting immersion, because as a playable game space, it's actually really impressive. It's really densely packed with like things to find, hidden areas, vents, terminals to hack, people to interact with. Way more people now than there were in the previous game. Way more people to talk to and interact with, many of whom give you side quests now. In the previous game, there were really only a handful of side quests in the entire game. So even though as a city, it doesn't feel super believable, as a game space, it seems to work really well, because there's a lot to do.
So are you jumping from Prague then to like different missions that are in like different parts of the world from there?
Yeah. Like so there was a story-based mission that occurred within Prague, but then immediately after completing that, I went to a different section of the city, which I guess is, so technically still in Prague, but not in that same hub world where I started.
Right.
So that was still technically in Prague, but it looked very different. It was like a bombed out train station. But then after that, like sort of the final segment that I played was in a different part of the world entirely. It was in like this slum for augmented people called Golem City that looked very like Blade Runner-y, like dystopian. Everything was made out of scrap metal somehow. Really eerie gold lighting throughout. So yeah, that was totally separate from the main city, and I just like got on a chopper to get whisked away to that part of the world, wherever that happens to be.
So it's still like a linear first person
totally
/ third person, I'm guessing, experience.
Well, yeah, the narrative and like the main campaign is definitely linear.
Yeah. How did the action feel then? Is it familiar to Human Revolution, or to Human Revolution? Is it the same sort of like cover mechanic, third person, you can stealth, you can actually like, did it feel all that different? Because like a lot of people in the chat are pointing at the fact that this seems like the reception to this seems to be quite like there isn't much hype going into this, almost like it feels like a known quantity. Does it play a lot like the previous game?
No, it definitely does. I mean, certain things have been improved or fleshed out. Like, for example, the big gameplay hook for Adam Jensen is that his body has like all these cybernetic enhancements, which manifest in various ways, usually in terms of like weapons or, like hacking abilities or stealth abilities, things like that. So there are new augments available, many of which are allow you to play non-lethally, which in the previous game, most of the augments seemed to be combat oriented. So they clearly heard that criticism. We're like, okay, we're going to try to implement new augments that really foster these different play styles and encourage people to play different ways. But yeah, that part of it is still very true. The game very much focuses on allowing you to play how you want to play, and a lot of the staples of the gameplay are there, like the switching between third person and first person when you go into cover, the ability to like cloak and move, and like finding those hidden vents or hacking terminals. Like all of that stuff plays very similarly to how it did in the previous game.
And I guess the devil's in the detail with all of this sort of stuff. Like, so how did it feel to you over the hours you were playing? Was that an enjoyable experience? Were there levels that you played through that you thought, hey, I wouldn't mind redoing that as action or stealth? Or did it feel like too familiar?
It was kind of a mix. I mean, I think the game still actually has some rough edges. There are clearly a lot of really great ideas, and I'm still very optimistic about the game. I will say that the combat, I never quite got a feel for it. I never really had too much fun. I feel like the game really limits your ammo supply and your energy supply. So if you're like going full out and you're just trying to kill everybody, you have to be very careful in how you do it, because you could easily run out of resources, or just get straight up murdered. Like,
but then you just use a chainsaw and the ammo falls out.
Yeah.
Peter immediately.
This is very much not Doom, and but in a way, I think that's actually kind of great. Like, there are so many great third-person shooters out there that if you want to just go like bang bang shooty whatever, you have tons of options for that. What I think this game does really well is giving you almost more of like a Mass Effect style approach to things, where you can socialize your way through things, you can like stealth your way through things. I really prefer those alternate play styles. Probably. There's like a potential love interest in the story. I mean, maybe not, but I didn't see any sex. There's a shower scene. So that happens.
Get to see all of Adam's augmentation.
Yeah, sexy augments and like a steamy shower. That was cool.
I know what I'd augment.
I guess.
Yeah.
No sex scenes that I saw though. But yeah, they really fleshed out the dialogue system, which I am a total sucker for. Like, I love branching dialogue trees, like Mass Effect or Fallout. So there's a lot more of that in this game, and I feel like you have more control over those conversations as a player than you did before. You have more opportunities to pick dialogue options and direct the way things are going. So I thought that was really cool. So I'm optimistic about those pillars, like the social and the stealth pillars. To me, are really exciting and really fun. Similar to the previous game, but still really cool.
Cool.
I'm kind of curious how you felt about the facial animations. Like, I got problems with Adam Jensen's voice. No need to go into that, because that's a personal nitpick. But looking at the facial animations and people talking, it looks like really outdated.
Yeah, no, I
very
definitely agree. They look really wonky and almost like out of sync. And I kept wondering if like, I don't think that's just like our video. Like, that's how I remember it being when I was playing the game live, like just me and a console and a TV. So I don't know what the deal is, but I agree that it's pretty dated.
So I'm wondering, does that that aspect like manifest itself in other ways? Like, are you noticing that this game is pretty sound throughout, or based on just what I'm looking at with the dialogue stuff, it seems like they sort of picked and choose what to really pay attention to?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that maybe is the case with the game at large?
I would say that another good example of that is actually the aiming, which is another reason I really don't like the combat that much. It's not bad, but I feel like the aiming was tuned for mouse and keyboard. I was playing on a controller.
Yeah.
So it's very one-to-one. So when you zoom in, suddenly like the reticule's really jumpy, even if the sensitivity is way down, which I tend to turn the sensitivity up when I'm playing shooters on a console. But in this case, actually I had to turn it down so that I could aim accurately while like aiming down sight. So, I mean, there's still a month before the game is out. I'm certain there will be a day one patch, because that's what happens with every game. So it's entirely possible some of those edges will be smooth before the game comes out. So I don't want to like fully condemn it.
No.
But I think that what you're hitting on is accurate. I think there are some rough edges. There are things in the game that look better than other aspects of the game. Look or feel better. So, I mean, tons of great ideas, and I have a lot of faith in this team, because they really seem to know what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a flawless demo. I didn't come away going like, this is amazing, I can't wait. I'm a little more like reluctant to, shower it with praise, but we'll see,
It's certainly not like trying to cast aspersions on the dev team, but like they're working with a budget and with a schedule, of course, and like some things have to fall by the wayside.
Yeah, this is the tragedy of AAA development. It's always like you're managing time and budget and manpower and just a million factors, and like, your ambitions sometimes are not going to align with the final product, and like you do the best you can. But
I was actually pleasantly surprised by how much they ended up reining it in for the previous game. How much they sort of like it was a game with rough edges, no doubt, but it had sort of enough of a concise vision that it was kept me coming back anyway.
That's kind of the story of Deus Ex as a whole series, though. I don't even think it was just the last game. I feel like every Deus Ex game I've looked at is kind of been like, like there's something about it that just doesn't feel like it's like they didn't get to go to the finish line all the way. But then everyone seems to love these aspects of it.
Yeah, a difficult franchise to take over as well.
Definitely is. I mean, I agree, though. There's just something about the franchise. There's something about its sort of conspiratorial world and the idea of the augments and the fact that you really can play combat, stealth, or packing or social.
Right.
It really does support all of these pillars. That's pretty unique. I mean, not many games can really pull that off. So I can see why, for certain people, this franchise is like just something they will always love, warts and all.
Right. Sure.
It's interesting to say that because there hasn't been many games which have done that, but we have Dishonored 2 coming out in 2016, which is very similar in that sort of respect. And then also Warren Spector working on the new System Shock remake as well, which probably won't be out for a little while, but kind of
cool though.
Similar stuff. Yeah.
I'm excited for that to exist. I mean, the early trailer of the new System Shock looks really great. So if they can make the whole game look and feel that great, then thumbs up.
So there you go. Deus Ex Mankind Divided coming out August 23rd. Scott, where can they see your preview? What's it called? It's on GameSpot, right?
It is on GameSpot. I believe it's just called Exploring Mankind Divided's Open World, Social Systems, and More. Cool. Relatively boring title, but wanted to just inform people like, here's the stuff of the game that we haven't been able to see yet. Come check out what we actually played recently.
Yeah, it's hard to sex up Adam Jensen in a headline, so we should have said Adam Jensen,
that voice,
shower augments.
He has the worst voiceover.
It's the Batman problem, right? It's like I get why you're doing this, but it's a bit like you're forcing it.
It's so hammy.
Yeah,
that dude kind of sounds like that in real life, though.
Which is like
look up interviews with that guy.
Gosh.
Like his voice is he actually sounds like this in real life. It's really crazy.
It's not convincing. The supporting like NPCs like sound far more convincing than the guy that they have.
But he's just like smoking 2 packs of Reds every day. It's just like it's doing.
He's got cybernetic lungs. It's cool. He'll be fine.
It's a good point. Beauty of the futures of smoking.
It's a future day.
Okay, let's wrap it up there. Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.